Well, yes, I am aware that I did it to myself. I jinxed myself when I said I really was wishing that it was going to get humid, because now guess what's happened? A little over 2 inches of rain in the last week, and it's been cloudy, very humid. The humidity is back to more of like a summer feel right now. So I can deal with that part, but let me show you some of the reasons why it's not so fun in the lawn today. What's going on in this fescue backyard is I'm seeing quite a bit of disease show up. And it's kind of strange to have this much disease showing up so early, just because the temperatures really haven't gotten into the disease window as far as something like brown patch. It's getting close today, a high of about 82, but usually you're looking at those overnight lows where it's much warmer and the humidity stays in all overnight. Now the humidity has been staying overnight, but the temperatures have still been dropping down to our normal sort of spring-like low temperatures, so 50s, sometimes right around 60. So that really shouldn't be causing any brown patch problems. So I did a little looking with this. I'm not a fungus expert by any means, and that's kind of the difficulty as homeowners sometimes when you're seeing a problem in your yard and trying to diagnose it and figure out exactly what it is, exactly what product you should put down. I'm kind of thinking right now, after talking to a few people, that this might be leaf spot, and it kind of looks like it, but it kind of also looks like a few other things. So there could be multiple things going on. This is still a very young yard, and I think that's what's making it more susceptible to the disease that's going on. So I did put down an application of Disease X, that's azoxystrobin, and I'm going to have to watch this now. Luckily, we've had about 2 or 3 days where it has not rained, but there for about 5 days straight, it was raining or misting and staying really, really humid the entire time. The lawn didn't dry out, and that was just kind of a recipe to cause what's going on right now. So I will keep you updated, but to say that once we get into summertime here, I'm a little concerned about some of the disease that I'm already seeing here. Absolutely, I'm a little concerned about it. So I'm going to have to kind of come at it from either a preventative way, or I have some other suggestions from some friends too on getting some more potassium, maybe a foliar form onto here, keeping up some of that stuff to try to fight off some of these diseases that are going on. The other thing that I guess I would say would be a concern of mine at this point would just be the density of this fescue already. Now you would say, well, you want the thickest yard you can possibly get, but I feel like for the maturity of this and the fact that it kind of isn't fully there yet, as we get into not even being close to a year old, you know, there was a rainstorm after I seeded this, and so I wasn't really sure what washed away at that point. It's one of the difficulties about seeding a yard is in your renovation process, sometimes you get a massive storm like right after you put down the seed. This happens to me all the time. And so what happens then is you're sort of unsure if you can't see exactly where all the seed washed to. I felt like I didn't see a lot still on the surface, so I didn't really know how much is left. And at that point, I did an overseeding. I did a little covering on that seeding at that point, and things came in really well after that because we didn't have any massive washouts. In the fall time, it looked pretty good for density. I knew that it was already possibly slightly thicker than I wanted it to be for how old that it was, but now I'm sort of seeing this being really, really super thick already. And what happens with that is there's not a lot of airflow in there. Once things sit wet and humid overnight and they don't dry out during long periods of rain, then I'm just going to get a little concerned as to how this is going to do during the most humid part of our year. And typically July, when it's hot, we also get a lot of thunderstorms because of that humidity. So I'm just going to have to see what happens and kind of play it by ear. So next on the list, I have some mushrooms showing up, and this really isn't all that uncommon here either. We have plenty of organic matter in our soil, it sits wet, and then you get some of those fungus conditions where mushrooms actually can thrive into those conditions. Once it dries out, you keep mowing these off, you're not going to have any issues. I've never applied anything for them or done anything in the past to get rid of them. Just mow it off, and then once drier conditions come in, all this should go away. It's also cotton season here, which means the cottonwood trees, which I know a friend of mine certainly loves cottonwood trees. It's that season where all that cotton's flying around, so I have that all over the yard. If you're seeing any white puffs of stuff onto the yard, or you're looking around for possible fungus issues, just don't confuse that with cotton. I don't think any of you are going to, but pythium, and the way that that kind of looks sometimes can look very similar to the cotton as well. I only found a couple of spots of disease on the front or side yard, but so far as things have dried out, the recovery looks like it's going okay. I'm going to be removing the clippings, especially from the backyard and probably the front as well right now, just to make sure I don't spread anything around that might be going on fungus-wise. This right here is going to get taken care of very soon. There's also a couple spots that I am seeing that look to me like they are Poa triv showing up. Now, I've lived at this house for almost 10 years, and I've really never seen Poa triv, not too much Poa annua, and so I'm kind of confused as to where those came from or why they're showing up right now, but for some reason this year I'm seeing a few patches of it. So luckily at this point I don't see it being widespread anywhere. The only solution to that I can think of really at this point is going to be kill those spots when they're small, dig those out, and then reseed. I'm probably not going to do that right at this moment, considering it's going into the summertime and it's only a couple months away from me being into renovation type of time frame again for the front yard, where I'll likely do my sort of fall process of leveling, overseeding, and that type of stuff. So I'll probably tackle it at that point. Definitely something to keep an eye on. So here's an update on the bluegrass behind the fence after dethatching, and I'm pretty impressed with the bounce back of it so far. It didn't do much for stressing it out. The rainfall that we got, application of fertilizer definitely helped that as well. So the recovery has been pretty good. It's not nearly back to what it was in its former glory by any means, but for about 2 weeks time since dethatching, I can't complain too much about this at this point. Let's also talk about everyone's favorite topic right now, which would be seed heads. And I've been getting some frantic messages on Instagram and other emails and things of people saying, oh man, my whole yard is covered in POA. What am I gonna do about it? And in reality, it's actually just seed heads, which this time of year, it's completely normal for some of the plants to be throwing out seed heads. This is a normal process that happens. It's kind of tough to mow, so make sure that you have your mower blade sharp. It'll be kind of like a stocky plant. It's a little more difficult to cut through, and it will dull your blades typically a little more quickly too. So pay attention to that. But over here on the Mazama, I have quite a few seed heads. For the rest of my shortcut lawn, I'm not really seeing a whole lot of seed heads right at this point. It's probably getting cut off consistently enough that they're not really able to grow up very much. But right in this section with the Mazama, I am seeing a few spots of seed heads, and that's exactly what they look like. Now the difference between this and POA are kind of similar. I'm gonna try to show you a photo here. So the seed heads will be a lot tighter going up on something like bluegrass or ryegrass. And then POA has ones that kind of stick out straight sideways from the stalk up at the top. So don't be freaking out if you have just a bunch of regular seed heads going on. It's nothing to worry about. It's going to be ending here in a couple weeks. Garden is looking good so far. Things are starting to grow in the raised bed. And over in this section here, these crops are coming in pretty well. So hopefully Kelsey will have an update on that coming up fairly soon. Kind of let you know how things go as we progress into the year with the garden. Flowers are also starting to really shine. We did one application of equalizer on these the other day. I'll be showing you an application coming up of some fertilizer to these, but really looking beautiful so far. Those, I absolutely love those. Those are gazanias, and we have a couple different varieties of them, so those are looking really nice. I've also loved these, which is dianthus. Those are some of my favorites as well. As you can see here, we have probably a rabbit eating some stuff already, which is always frustrating. So, and there's a weed. It's crazy to think that it's already almost summer. I feel like spring hasn't even really ever arrived until about a week ago, and that's been the case the last couple years. So it just feels like kind of went from semi-winter straight into summer, but you know, that's just how it goes. You have to kind of roll with the punches. So the front yard has been growing like wildfire. I need to get some growth regulator on that soon. We've got a project coming on the deck. We need to stain it and add a little bit of something to it that we've been looking forward to for a while. I have some very exciting stuff coming up in June and July as well that's planned, so stay tuned for all of that. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.